got this incredible panel of people here, and I'd like to move to just a 30-second intro because the questions are so important, and I think we're going to get amazing answers. I just want to hear a little bit for the audience, each of you, high level, what are you passionate about these days? Lili.
Hi, so my name is Lilac by David, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Lili. Lili is a bank, the first bank within the US, which is focused on designers and freelancers in general. So our goal is actually to empower freelancers to challenge and balance work and life in just one account. So think about all of the different challenges of becoming an independent worker, on managing a business on one hand and being very creative on the other hand. So we are trying to solve that with offering a lot of financial tools and services.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Charlotte Dennery, the CEO of BNP Paribas Leasing Solutions. This is a subsidiary of BNP Paribas, the big group, the big financial group. And I am very pleased to be here to talk about the position of women in decision-making position. And I think this is very important to talk to you about the life of a woman in a place where usually you have male. And I will give you some advice about what I think is important as a woman to give you in order to raise the ladder and to get to the top position where I've been able to get.
Thank you, Karien.
Karien van Gennip, we say in Dutch, but van Gennip in English, or van Gennip in French. I run ING in France here. ING Direct, as you might know, the retail side of our business as a brand, has been here for 20 years, and we like to say we are one of the first fintechs around, because when we started ING Direct 20 years ago in many different countries, it was already an online, now a digital bank focused on customer experience. If you ask me what I'm passionate about, well, many things, aside from my 4 daughters, which I try to raise in a way that they can really feel and think that they can reach anything, do anything, no matter whether they're a girl or a boy, and no matter whether they're born in the Netherlands or maybe someplace else. If I look at what's going to happen in the next 10 years, then I think being passionate is probably one of the most important things we have left. There are so many changes in this world, there are so many challenges coming our way, so finding our purpose and being passionate about it is probably one of the key drivers that really is going to make us going in the next decade.
Thank you. And finally, Ruth.
My name is Ruth Foxe. I am a venture capital investor. I'm a partner at Anthemis. Anthemis is a leading global fintech and insurtech investor with about 100 portfolio companies now. We are at the decision-making level on the investment side, 60% women, 40% men. And we are about 54% women overall. I came to Anthemis from an organization which was not quite so representative. I began my investing career at Allianz, investing in fintech there.
Thank you so much. Now, I have to tell you, the format will be slightly different today. I decided, because this topic's so important, and I don't think we've heard about this exact topic before at this forum, that I would plan a little bit with each of the panelists ahead of time. So I asked for their input on 5 questions that I thought were incredibly important, and I asked them which ones were their favorite 2. So we've all kind of had that go on behind the scenes, so I sort of have a lead answer on one and a second answer on another. So if you're wondering why I keep pointing at people specifically, they're not going to be that shocked by this. So here we go. So my number 1 question, and I'm going to address it to Karien, is what, from your perspective, are the 3 main trends and changes that you see on the horizon? We're talking about the next decade here. And for each trend, where do you see the opportunity for women?
I think the first big trend that we all see, and it won't surprise you, is of course the impact of technology and data. And we're only at the beginning of what data and technology will change in our daily lives, in our banking businesses, in many other places. And if you look at what it means for a customer experience, then clearly the expectations are set outside of the financial industry. If I look at what I need to do as a banker, I'm not looking at another bank, I'm looking at Google, Uber, Amazon. As I said, we're only at the beginning, and we're talking about personalization of data, and we're basically talking about that I know everything about you. And you probably know a lot about me as well, but I have your personal payment data, so I know a little bit more. And that's something we should all be very aware of. I can use it for good, but it needs to be protected. And therefore I think it's very important that we have European regulation on that. And the third thing on technology and data is the impact on jobs. For me as an employer, that means that I have the responsibility, I feel the responsibility to reskill my teams, to make sure that they can find a new job inside or outside of ING. I'm not training them for the next job at ING, I'm training them for the next phase in their professional lives. It also means that, especially in Europe, we're looking at an almost jobless growth at the moment, or job-light growth. We're losing more jobs at this moment due to digitalization, automation, than we're gaining jobs. So for the European continent, there's a question, how can we get back those investors into Europe to make sure that those digitalization, those new jobs are taking place in Europe as well? And then if you have the question, what is the impact on women? Then I think we've heard that yesterday and today a couple of times already. There are not enough girls joining technical universities. I don't have enough female engineers joining ING. I recruit more engineers than bankers at the moment, but there are hardly any females. And if I look at my algorithms today, they're designed by young, urban males. So we're not only excluding females, we're also excluding the older generation or the people that are not as happy digital as we all are. And that's a really, really big question. How am I going to make the data revolution inclusive? And not just for us, the 20 people here who are very digitalized. The second big trend, of course, is climate change. I'll be a bit shorter. It's impacting everything. And the big question for banks is how you can use your balance sheet for the good. How you can actually drive companies and individuals to be greener by adapting the terms of your loans. If somebody's more sustainable, you get a better loan. One remark there, and that's interesting. We've been on this sustainable path for a while now. I met many more women than I met men who are actually driving this. When I want to talk to the CFO on sustainability, the female CEO almost everybody says yes, the male CEO not. So that's really something where we can have an influence as women, but also where I think the men need to start to realize that their responsibility is broader than just their own responsibility, their own company. As a company, you have a responsibility vis-à-vis society. And the last one is probably about uncertainty.
Uncertainty?
Uncertainty. We've never lived in a world, and at least in my life, that is as uncertain as it is today. That's because of technology, that's because of climate change, but it's also because of a geopolitical situation that is very uncertain. And in times of uncertainty, people need purpose. They need to know what they're living for, what they go to work for, and they need connectiveness. They need to belong to something. It can be a soccer club, it can be the village, it can be a religion, it can also be a company. If you feel part of a club, you're more secure, and then also probably you're more open to welcome all those volatile movements that you see around you. And that is, in my experience, also where, if we can call it that, female leadership, whether it's female or male, but it's leadership that's more outreaching, that's more externally oriented, that's more long-term, is very, very important to guide us all through those uncertain times and create that feeling of security and connectiveness.
Thank you so much. And I'm interested in the perspective of Ruth on this question because she's coming at it from an entirely different path as a venture capital investor. Ruth, what changes do you see in the next decade, the main opportunities from your standpoint for women?
Well, and to some extent, I think that a lot of, I agree with a lot of what you said. The investment opportunities that I see and that we see at Anthemis generally really ladder up to kind of thesis that we have around what we call embedded finance. So basically the idea that financial services or financial products and transactions are not going to exist discretely in kind of banks and insurance companies, and financial services companies, but will originate because of technology and data and because of some of the other sort of, darker things on the horizon like climate change, in situ, in places that are context relevant. So we'll be able to serve customers with financial products in places that are relevant to them, and create transactions in those places. And we'll also be able to react, because of the sort of proliferation of sensors and sensor data, to events, let's say, whether they're climate-based or other, in order to automatically, for example, pay out insurance claims or provide relevant services. And I think that where I see as a venture capital investor the advantage there for women is that we all know that women are really underrepresented in finance. And if you start to think about fintech investing and insurtech investing as coming from places other than from financial services, you have a much broader perspective on whom you might be investing in, what kind of founders you're looking at and talking to, and whom you consider relevant. And I think that this has been a struggle for women for as long as I've worked in the industry, is feeling like, how do I break into something new? How do you become an investor? How do I, become a banker? Those questions aren't totally obvious, but what I can say is the way that you can raise money in fintech or insurtech today is really quite a lot broader and sort of more diversified than it was a decade ago. So we look at sectors like energy and mobility and agriculture, all as financial services, sectors with great financial services potential, and those are just a few.
Love it, thank you. And changing tacks a little bit here, one of the key themes in the research that I've done over the last decade was that women are not risk averse. I knew that, but I've kind of proved it now, both quantitatively and qualitatively. And I've come up with an expression that women are risk aware, not risk averse. So on that note, risk awareness is an incredibly positive skill set that's much needed in the financial industry across the board. And so I'm going to ask Charlotte to comment on, in your view, Charlotte, what are the most relevant positions in the industry for this skill set of risk awareness that so many women have? What do you see? How can we incorporate more women who are risk aware?
When you are talking about risk awareness or risk adverse, which is not the case, you're mostly talking about, I would say, the asset management business or the financing business, but the trading part of the financing business. To start with, I'd like to explain to you what we are doing in our company, because we are not on this, I would say, asset management or CIB part of the financial activity. We are on the credit part of the activities. So what do we do concretely? We finance small or large corporate, and we finance their equipment. So we do not take any market risk, but we take credit risk. And that means that altogether with those that are looking at the quality of the risk, we are going to make decision taking into account the P&L of those entities, so those clients, taking into account their balance sheet, taking into account the sector in which they are working, etc., etc. So we are getting information from many people. And when we make risk decision, it's all about sharing this information, making the decision, do we finance this type of equipment or no, the company is too weak to be able to reimburse afterward either the loan or the lease. The good point with what we are doing is that it's less risky than a classical loan because in front of the lease that we are making, we have the equipment, and in case of real difficulty from the client, we can take back, recover the asset, and then resell it and get the guarantee from the asset. But to come back to the risk awareness and the fact that it is more feminine, what I would say is that the way we were is neither feminine or masculine. This is just the way to work collectively with all those stakeholders that have an idea about the clients and are able to make the analysis of the client. So coming back to your first question, which was what kind of position women can have in this type of environment, I would say that if you look at what's happening today, we see women, as it was explained previously in the other panel, we see women in marketing, we see women in communication, we see women in HR. And what needs to change is clearly to have women in the decision-making positions. So that means that we need to have women in the commercial roles as well as in the CEO roles. I've seen so many women going into also, I was talking about HR communication. We see also a lot of women in project management. Women are very well organized. We have to deal with so many things at the same time, the family aspects, the professional aspects. Sometimes we deal with communities. Sometimes we also deal with our parents. So that means that our head is organized to be able to deal with everything. So we are very good at project management. And it's very easy from all the top management to say to us, okay, go in the project management, you will be perfect. But if we want to change things, we have to ask for position in the top management decision-making position. Then talking about the adaptation of the structure, because you ask also what can we do to adapt our structure. I will just give you an example about what we've done in my company. So it's a company of about 3,500 people, but in Paris we are about 1,500 people. And we used to work in La Défense, so in a tall building, as usual, you know those skyscrapers. And we moved a little bit further away in the suburb in Nanterre. And of course, this made a significant change for all our colleagues. So we decided at the same time that we would put in place two things, very important things. First of all, the flex office. So nobody has a seat, but everyone can sit wherever they want, so that we can organize transversality, and this come back to the sharing of ideas and the sharing of decision. And we also put in place the home office working, where at the beginning we had a few people taking it, and now you have to know that 60% of the people are working from home at least 1 day or 2 days a week. And I think this is also very important if you want to attract the millennials as well as the women, because it's a good way for them to help them organize themselves in their day-to-day life, especially if they have kids.
Thank you. I'm going to have to cut you off now. I have to say, these women so far, I told them 6 minutes on this, 4 minutes on this, because I'm really like that. A lot of women are perfectionists like me, like that. And they're like right on the money. It's so easy. You're making my job easy. So we're going to go to Lilac from a different perspective on the same question. Risk-aware women as a positive skill set for the financial industry. You're coming at it from a banking for freelancers. A little bit about your startup would be interesting for the audience, I think. Maybe it's not a startup anymore. When did you start?
I've been doing different roles in the payment and banking industry for the last 20 years, and this is the second time that my co-founder and I are actually building banks. So the first one was Pepper in Israel. It's the first challenger bank in Israel, very focused on consumer millennials. And now we're in the process of Lili. It's actually live now within the states, all 50 states, 30 different segments of freelancers. And from my point of view, it's actually becoming a female entrepreneur is creating that best impact from a fintech point of view that we can make. So because like within the last 20 years doing different positions, I felt like I'm actually having an impact on the market, but not as big as actually creating a new product for the market. And I think female entrepreneurs are actually very, very good in starting initiatives. We are very focused, very aware. We can manage things all together. Like we are always managing things like home, work, everything all together. And that industry is really, really underserved by us in general. So if you look at startups in general, mostly men CEOs, men co-founders, and so on. It's not an easy path. Like, it's really, really hard. But I think, we are very, very good at it.
Lilac, may I ask what percentage of women are in your company? I think it's fairly high.
Within my company? Yeah, like it's almost half and half. And we're struggling on that because, as somebody said here already, we have a lot of engineers. So it's really hard to find females engineers. But overall, if you look at design, marketing, product, whatever is actually really impacting the experience, I think female entrepreneurs are really, really good, and overall women are really, really good. And we should embrace that risk in general of actually creating startups and just go for it. So the fintech industry really, really needs a lot of CEOs and female entrepreneurs.
Okay, so we all have to jump off the cliff if you haven't done so already. Thank you. Now, next question we're going to go to is I'll tell you again about one of the themes in my research is that women prefer to invest in causes and concerns that matter to them. Save the world, save the family, even save their own souls. It has to be aligned with their investment decisions. That's just one part of it, investing. Here we've got people from across the board, all facets of lending, insurance, banking, the whole industry. What can we as an industry do to make it easier for women to invest or to bank or to take out loans in the way that means something to them, to encourage them to get started if they haven't already? And what kind of tools can they be using? And so I'm going to start with Karien on this one.
I think overall, not just women, but men as well, we all need to become far more aware of how important it is to understand our own financial future. Where maybe 10, 20 years ago, we all thought education was going to be for free forever, healthcare is always accessible and affordable to everybody, housing prices would only go up and you have a job for life. Well, that's not the case anymore, so we need to prepare ourselves for a financial, much more volatile, insecure future. Because we have to pay for the education of our kids now, we definitely have to pay for healthcare. We're not investing enough in healthcare, that's going to be the next crisis, by the way. Housing prices might not always go up. With low interest rate, the returns are not that sure, so we have to start to invest in our own financial future. And I'm struggling with it myself. I'm a banker, and I don't even know what my own financial situation is. And I know from our research that many clients, they don't like to dive into their own financial situation. And as I said earlier today, people want to have a nice house to live in. They don't want to buy a mortgage. They don't want to understand what that whole mortgage is about. Don't need to push the mortgage. I need to make sure that they live in a nice house. That's the feeling that people have. And we're so attached to our screens, but we don't dive in our own finance. So I'm struggling with it. But I do know that when we as bankers are more aware of it, I try to make you more aware of it. And I'm going to say, for instance, do you know if you save today 100 euros with a 2% return, in 10 years you have 20% more, you have 120 euros. With a 7% return, a little bit more, in 10 years it will be doubled. So if you know that you're going to have a shortage in your pension, if you don't buy that pair of jeans today for 100 euros, you invest it for 30 years, you almost have a month's worth of living cost 30, 35 years down the road. It's that easy. Buy one pair of jeans less, or a pair of shoes, or a handbag. I have a lot, so I can, save a little bit more if I buy less handbags. But buy one handbag less, invest it in your own future, and you have a month to live from when you're 65.
We should be filming this, are we? That's good advice. Thank you. And Lilac, from your perspective, I mean, you're already in the freelancer market, so you've already developed an app that helps women. Because I think, what's the percentage of female freelancers globally?
Globally, it's like almost half.
Yeah.
But within Lili, it's actually 60%. And we were asking ourselves, what is it about the Lili product that actually addresses to women in general? And we were debating, is it the Lili name? Is it because the name is actually more feminine? Or is it something else? And when we were looking for feedback and we were asking women, what did they love about the product and so on, I think, the most common answer we got is about the fact that it's so easy and simple. Like, if you look at the banking industry in general, it's really, really non-sympathetic for women in general. There's a lot of documents, a lot of fine prints and red tape, and at the end, it's very, very confusing. And overall, you feel like you're paying or you will be overpaying for a service that you don't understand. And for us, it was about creating a product that is really, really simple. Really, really, the onboarding process is so easy. It takes like 2.5 minutes. And you don't have to pay any fees. Everything is very clear. You understand the product. It's simple. It has an intuitive design and a lot of content around it. So you can actually feel in control of your finance. And I think that is the way to go from developing different financial products.
Thank you. And my last, well, not second last theme is women need finance and finance needs women. I wrote an article about that if you're interested. Everything's on my site, barbarastewart.ca, if you like this topic. So how can we encourage women to enter financial careers, we need them, and reach the top positions, which we've heard today is incredibly important. And I'm going to ask Ruth to lead off with this one.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that we're doing concretely at Anthemis with one of our investors, which is Barclays, UK bank, is we've created this something called the Female Innovators Lab, and it's essentially intends to invest in women entrepreneurs and support women entrepreneurs in building businesses and financial services. And I think that more and more we're seeing either funds that are dedicated to female entrepreneurs on the VC side, or initiatives like this, which are recognizing that one of the reasons that entrepreneurs don't enter, or female entrepreneurs don't launch companies, is because of some of the constraints that were kind of discussed in previous panels around having families and things like that, and sort of confidence issues. Not feeling like you understand technology, and so we're providing support for these extremely talented women in finance who want to do their own thing. In terms of attracting women to financial services, I feel like concretely, or retaining women in financial services, I feel like one of the things that we can really concretely do is just not expect our female colleagues or women who work for us to be 1 billion times better than men. And I feel like this is a huge problem, and it's something that I've observed throughout my entire career. I think it's fascinating that I'm sitting next to someone who has 4 children. I have 4 children. It's like, I feel like that we project this image that in order to succeed in this industry, you have to do like double the norm. And it's not fair. And I feel like, women are not the problem, sexism is the problem. And we have to kind of find ways in our organizations to combat sexism and to say, like, you know what, so-and-so is doing an awesome job, she's due for a promotion, or I don't actually really care what so-and-so is wearing, it doesn't matter to me, it has nothing to do with anything, or the fact that someone says or like, or whatever presentation set, or they didn't do like 4 million years of business school, because I certainly didn't. Just being more
like exaggerating, I love it.
I love
4
to
million.
exaggerate. Even 1 year. No, but I think that we do tend to be very exacting with women in the workplace, and we should stop doing that. And I think that would be awesome, and it would go a long way to attracting women and retaining them if we just expect the same as what we expect from men.
And then we don't have to be so perfect or think that we have to be perfect before we bother doing anything at all. Charlotte?
Yes, I totally agree with what you've just said. I would just like to talk about something which is very important to my heart, which is how, as a CEO of a company, do I prepare the future of the company, and do I prepare the future career of our women? Because that is, according to me, something that is really very important. We have at the level of the company a significant talent pool of women. The question is, how do they get to the top positions? And this is something that you have to prepare when they are 30 or in between 30 and 40. And in order to get there, you really have to give them confidence and to be able to level the barrier, the mental barrier that they may have. And that is absolutely crucial. So what we have decided to make in my company is, so I have an executive board of 4. We are 2 men and 2 women. We have decided to mentor 12 women, so 3 each of us, and to talk to them in a very informal way, very familiar way every month, in order to discuss with them about their career, to open their mind about what they can do, to discuss with them about their difficulties and the way they can cope in between family life and professional life. And to be honest, to open also their mind about the fact that they have opportunities and they should take them. And this has been very, very useful. We have results, you know, among the 12 that we mentor. 3 of them has already moved position in a higher position. 1 of them took a position in our exco, so that's great. And I may say that according to me, this is my major I would say priority in terms of helping women in finance. It's clearly to help them understand that they can do it and they don't have, they should level the barrier that they have in their mind.
Love it. Thank you. Last topic. In my travels over the last 10 years and over 800 interviews with very smart women around the world, the number one theme that has come across over and over again, regardless of culture or age or anything, is that of I need to be financially independent. And it's this idea of I make my own money and I make my own decisions, therefore I am free. And you can't be an independent woman without being a financially independent woman. So on that note, and we know that today's number one target market for, I would say, across all industries, is a financially confident woman. How are we going to help them? Do we have any final suggestions from any of the panelists on how we can, as an industry, better help women achieve financial independence?
I can go, yeah. Before I had this job, I was heading private banking in the Netherlands. And one of the things that we did was we actually started specialist private bankers for women. And that really worked. And that can be women who inherited from their parents. That could be women who were professionally, people like us. It could be women who got to a divorce. But it really worked. And many of them chose to have a female banker to do that, and also chose to not have the same banker as their husband. And I think that's one of the tips I learned at that time from my own clients. Take different bankers, like you also take different lawyers when you go to a divorce. So I think that is maybe one advice.
So even if you're happily married, for financial...
Well, no, yeah, then maybe not yet. No,
okay,
then, yeah.
but it's a possibility. Yeah.
It's more when it's starting to end. I think the other thing is to have role modeling, show independent financial women. And what I just said, once in a while, invest 1 pair of jeans in your own financial future. That will really make you independent also 30 years down the road. Because the biggest pool of poverty is with older women. Older women who didn't save enough for their pensions, who become widows, because women live longer than their men, who become widows and then have another 7 or 8 years to go with not enough money. So invest that pair of jeans in your own financial future. And
how do we get this advice out? How do we get this advice out to a larger audience?
Well, in panels like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you tweet it, then maybe people will start to invest that pair of jeans.
Yeah.
And I want to add one, if I may remark on the previous discussion, how we get more women and senior women in the financial industry, because many things were said, and I agree with them all, but not everybody has, like you and me, a female CEO with, I also have 50% female board members and 50% male. Many senior leaders are still men. So we cannot get there if we don't involve those male senior leaders. Mm-hmm. And in that respect, I think we need more male feminists. We need more male leaders who are willing to take on the cause for diversity.
So that's a job opportunity for any of the men here and outside. So we'll be tweeting about that. Thank you. Ruth, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think this is a bit of a generational topic. I feel like the kind of millennial generation does not assume that they will not be financially independent. And certainly my daughter, who's almost 14, told me when she was turning 10, she didn't want to have kids because like 10 years of her life had already gone by and she just hasn't even done anything yet. I don't think that these like youngsters have any impression that they're not going to need to be financially independent and that's not their ambition. I think that one of the things that the financial services industry can do better is provide better products which are more transparent and more fair. And I think that's it's interesting to have the representation of Lilac on the panel because it sounds like that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I think that if we think about it from a user experience perspective and ultimately from a kind of product fairness perspective, that's definitely something that we can do concretely.
Level the playing field, the internet. Anyone else?
Well, I would add that everything is about education. Everything starts very early, so it's a question of educating our daughters, and I'm not talking only about the mother educating the daughters, but the mother and the father educating their daughters so that they may scientist career because it's easier to be a scientist when you are getting into the financial area, and it starts very early. All the studies are saying that you start to make choice when you are 7, and then afterward you make other choices when you are 12, and later on when you are 16. So it's very important to be able to make those choices and to have the set of skills that will help you to go into this type of career. That's the first point. And the second point I would say is that we are all in charge of being role models. It's finished the time of pioneers women pioneers who had those careers but had no children, had no life outside of their professional life. I don't know, I have 2 kids, you have kids, I don't know.
3.
So I have 3 too. And so this is finished, and now we have women like Christine Lagarde or Ursula von Keypen at the European Commission. So they are role model, and we all should be role model for the younger generation. That is also very important, and this is why I'm talking in this type of instance.
Thank you for doing that. Yeah.
I think, from my point of view, there are 2 main angles. The first is actually building better product that will address and will have better social impact and address the concerns of women within the financial industry, which is not just the financial industry. If you look at the insurance industry as well, you can see the same trends of like women not buying insurance products for different reasons and so on. And the second is like lead by example, sharing a lot of use cases, a lot of success stories. So like women can actually feel and resonate that they can do it. It's achievable. We can also be part of that specific goal and so on. So I think those 2 will be about the balance, but at the end, it's just taking time. And we see the change. It's not that, the impact is not that great until now, but it was already said. I think, the younger generation already takes that into consideration, that they feel like they can do anything. So hopefully they will do a better job than us here, but it's changing.
It's changing rapidly from my perspective. When I'm traveling, one of the areas I love to go to, where I'll be on International Women's Day, is the Nordic countries. We heard from Finland earlier today.
Amazing.
But in Stockholm, for example, there are Facebook communities that have 130,000 women in them that actually talk about stocks. They're not talking about what should I do with my life. They're talking about investing, and they're replicating these types of groups throughout the Nordics. And that's what I love about social media, social trading platforms, and even online investment clubs are, I think, just in their infancy and are coming back. So I'm really optimistic. I think that we've spent the last decade burying the stereotypes, particularly about women and investing and being incompetent and all of that. And I'm looking forward to the next decade very much with women like these 4 as leaders and all willing to get out here and to talk about it and encourage everybody else. So thank you all so much. Thank you for attending today, and hopefully next year we'll be in the big room. Yeah.